Let's have a look on the different networks and the capacities. In this diagram, you can see on the x-axis the distances in an exponential scale, which goes from 10 meters up to 1,000 kilometers. And you can see in an additional scale that from some meters to 1 kilometer, we're talking about local area network LAN. From 1 to, let's say, 50 kilometer, we're talking about MANs, like metropolitan area network. And the bigger networks are called WAN, like wide area network. And on the y-axis as well, we do have an exponential scale, which shows the capacity in megabit per second. Then each of these lines, these blue, green, red lines, stands for a certain protocol, a certain protocol with a given bandwidth. And the first thing what you can see is all of these lines are horizontal. What does it mean? Basically, it means the bandwidth doesn't depend on the size of a network. So you could, for example, have this ATM 155 network, which has a capacity of more than 100 megabit per second. And it doesn't matter if it is just 100 meter in size or if it is 1,000 kilometer in size. The bandwidth is always the same, which might be a little bit surprising. Then the lines are limited, so they do not go from, let's say, 0 meter to 10,000 kilometer. Some are smaller, like for example the red ones, USB. What does this mean? Basically it means you have a limited cable length. For example, a USB cable must not be longer than, let's say, 1 or 2 meter. Otherwise they won't work anymore. You have longer cables like Ethernet, the red one, which go up to maybe 100 meter. And vice versa, you do have the blue lines of fiber optic cables, which are limited, let's say, should at least be 100 meter long. Basically, they could be smaller, but it simply doesn't make sense. It's like having a highway and a highway entrance every 10 meter. That's not what highways are made for. You do have highways and you connect entrances which are, for example, 10 kilometers apart each. Finally, we have the green ones. And here you once again can see the limitations in size. For example, UMTS and LTE networks are smaller or roughly 1 kilometer. This is a distance, the maximum distance you can have once you want to connect to an antenna. So antennas have to be built up in, let's say, at least a distance of 1 kilometer each. And having a look at 5G, you see this line is a little bit smaller. So 5G requires much more antennas. Basically, every 100 meter or even closer, you have to have antennas depending on the geometry, for example, buildings you see. In the past, it has been that copper is always faster than the radio links given at the same time. For example, UMTS and ADSL have been at the same time. So ADSL is faster than UMTS. This has changed now. So LTE and 5G are faster than typical copper standards. Why? Because it doesn't make sense to increase the bandwidth of copper, because we have, for these kind of purposes, we have the fiber optics, and they are very fast, and we haven't reached the limit yet.